Hey, all, today we're going to keep talking about roots or radicals, and this time we're going to talk about cube roots. You'll notice on these first two problems here, there's a 3 outside the radical. It's kind of like an exponent. When we had a square root, there's actually a 2 there. We just don't typically write it. A square root asks, for example, what number did I multiply by itself to get 25? So it was 5 times 5. So 5 2 times. And so the square root of 25 is 5. When we look at a cube root, we want to know what number do I multiply by itself 3 times? So for example, 1 times 1 times 1 equals 1. Therefore, 1 is a perfect cube. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Therefore, 8 is a perfect cube. If we take the cube root of 8, we would get 2. The cube root of 1 is 1. 3 times 3 times 3 gives us 27. That means 27 is a perfect cube. Not the cube root of 27 is 3. We're asking ourselves, when we look at a cube root, what number did we multiply 3 times, the very same number, to get 27? And so just like we have perfect squares, we have perfect cubes. And so my first 3 perfect cubes are 1, 8, and 27. And then 64, the cube root of 64 is 4. Cube root of 125 is 5. Cubed root of 216 is 6. And we could keep going. We'll stop there. These numbers get pretty big. And so when we were simplifying square roots, we wanted to see what was the biggest perfect square we could divide the number underneath the radical by so that we could factor it and we could simplify. And we're going to do kind of the same thing here with cube roots. So if I want to know the cube root of 16, I want to simplify it. I don't want decimals. We might end up still having a cube root in our answer, but I want to simplify this thing. So I want to factor 16, and I want to try and find a factor of 16, something that multiplies to make 16 that is a perfect cube. So I have my first 6 perfect cubes over here, and I think the biggest one I can divide 16 by is 8. So the cubed root of 16 is the same as the cubed root of 8 times the cubed root of 2, since 2 times 8 is 16. Because 8 is a perfect cube, we know that 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. This can simplify to be 2. And then the cubed root of 2 is going to be some decimal, and so we just leave it like that. Very similar to when we had square roots. I took out the variables so that we could just focus on the numbers for now. So my strategy is going to be to see what is the largest perfect cube I can divide the number by. So I can divide 750, and sometimes it takes, trying a few out. You can divide by 8, 27, 64. I can divide 750 by 125. One of my perfect cubes. And 125 times 6 makes 750. The point in doing that, finding the 2 factors of 750, one of them being a perfect cube, is so that I can now simplify this cubed root of 125, and it's just going to turn into 5, because 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. The cubed root of 6, well, that's going to be a decimal. And so we just leave it like that. Maybe I'll put in here for you the next several perfect cubes. So we have 343 becomes 7. The cube root of 512 is 8. The cube root of 729 is 9. And the cube root of 1000 is 10, just in case you need them. So let me look at this next one. Cube root of 64. Well, if you're looking at our list of perfect cubes, I can see that 64 is a perfect cube. 4 times 4 times 4 makes 64, and therefore the cube root of 64 is just simply 4. So I want you to go ahead and pause right now, pause the video. I want you to see if you can find the cube root of 500. Start by trying to divide it by some of the perfect cubes that I put up there and see which is the largest one you can divide it by without getting a decimal, and then go from there. So pause, give it a try, and then press play to see the answer. So if I'm factoring 500, and I'm testing out some perfect cubes, I see that 125 is the largest perfect cube I can divide this by. 500 factored is 125 times 4. And so we'll put a cube root on both of those. And we know from earlier the cube root of 125 is 5. And the cube root of 4, well, that's going to be a decimal. Don't get these confused with square roots. They're different. Square roots are what number am I multiplying twice? Cube roots, what number am I multiplying 3 times? And so we know the square root of 4 is 2, but the cube root of 4 is not. It's not a perfect cube, so we just leave it like that. That's as simple as we can make it. We're done. So as always, it's very important that if you got stuck at any point during this lesson, please do raise your hand before you try some problems on your own. Get some help. Ask some questions. Make sure you stick around and do these 5 problems. And then make sure you do some more practice, because the more practice you get with these, the more you'll recognize what numbers are divided by what perfect cubes, and you'll start remembering some of the perfect cubes, which is helpful. So as always, ask for help, do some practice, check your answers. Good luck.